Thank you, Kirk. Bonjour, mes amis. Welcome, everyone, to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa on this first Sunday of church summer season and race weekend here in Ottawa, Ontario. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or watching from wherever you may be, and I've just been told people are probably not watching from wherever they are. We're having tech gremlins this morning. So I'm glad you're all here. I'm 30 Cleary. I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, this congregation's lead minister. This morning we'll be hearing from our own Justine De Jaegher, and we're joined by our worship associate Mary, and Kirk is leading our music today. The young ones are downstairs enjoying messy church once again this morning. Let me say, a lot of you have been receiving emails that weren't from me this week. I apologize for that. I'm seeing waves. There have been people stopping by the office to ask me about it, and calling me, and texting me, and emailing me. Phishing attempts are increasingly sophisticated. Be wary, be wise. It didn't sound exactly the way I write, so keep that in mind. So without further ado, let us begin by joining our voices in song. Please rise as you are willing and able in body or in spirit as we sing together, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire, which you'll find as number 34 in your gray hymnal.
And Good morning, everyone, once again. Welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Mary, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Whether you are taking part in this worship celebration from your home, which is a little difficult at the moment, I gather, or wherever else you may be, whenever you may log on, you are welcome here. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all those that have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch during this protracted pandemic. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and you would like more information about FirstU, it is available at the welcome table at the back of the pews, and Carol Card hopefully will wave at us. There she is. Nope, she's not. Anyway, Carol is there somewhere, and she's very friendly, and she'll be glad to help you in any way she can. And now here's Brent from our board to highlight our announcements for today. Brent?
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, everyone. My announcements. Thank you to all the very, very many volunteers who helped at last week's National Symposium, or at the OWL Facilitator Training, which followed, or at the youth conference that was held simultaneously. Thank you for sitting at tables and standing at doors, for ticket taking and salad making, and yikes, the youth are still awaking. Thank you for shuttling people and things, and for stepping up to the microphone, and for listening to everyone at the table. In particular, we thank Maury Prévost for all his masterful and at times stressful organization of the symposium, and to Kathy Yaw for managing all the volunteers, and to Lisa Sharp for coordinating the chaos of Canoodle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Swinging for Syrians concert is happening tonight. Come early to see all the amazing silent auction items and stay for the great music of the Silver Swing Band. And as a bonus, there will even be delicious Syrian treats. Tickets are on sale after service. See Eva at the back of Worship Hall. They'll also be available at the door this evening at 7 o'clock, correct? Silent auction starts at 6 o'clock? Okay. It would be great to see you there. That is in an activity that we are having in concert with the Jewish Reconstructionist group, or Hanashama, that meets in our building. Finally, there will be a congregational picnic next Sunday after service. Please bring a potluck dish to share, but more importantly, please plan to join us. The special guest of honor will be Reverend Ellen Bell, and you can give to Reverend Ellen's retirement this week in the collection plate or by e-transfer. Please designate it for Reverend Ellen. You can ask Reverend Eric or our finance and HR manager, Michelle Jackson, for more details about the event. We have requested good weather for the picnic. And now, Donna Bowen-Willer with announcements from our Environmental Action Group.
I think we should mention it's not a normal potluck, it's just salad and appetizers are supposed to come.
There's also going to be a barbecue?
Yeah, but they're not providing that. You're asking them to do a potluck.
Excuse us just a moment.
It's not. Excuse me.
I'll do it myself. I just wanted you to know that when he said it was a potluck, it is, but it's a barbecue, which the church is providing. So what you're asked to bring is a salad or an appetizer to go with the barbecue. Okay, so we're not looking for casseroles and so on, basically. Okay, is that clear or is that worse? Better? Thank you.
It's always good to have Mary in control. Okay, I'm Donna Bowen-Willer from the Environmental Action Group. 2 dates to mark. First, Monday, June the 15th at noon, Parliament Hill, big event. So first of all, this week, sign the petition, and then design a poster for the march, or alternatively for your lawn if you can't come, or your balcony, or your window. And check out the art build next week if you don't like drawing art on or doing art on your own. All those things are all in the Climate Action page. And then on Monday, the 15th, join with other UUs and a multitude of environmental groups, a whole bunch of them are presenting this petition that you're signing, and raise your voices and demand 100% renewable power for all by 2035. So this is a matter not only of climate, but climate justice. So this is a big march. And then second big item, save June the 13th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. Earth Speaks is back and is presenting Markham Hislop, who's a Canadian energy and climate journalist. And he's going to speak on unethical oil, Alberta's secret shame. The costs which have arisen and will arise to Alberta and Canada stemming from the long-time industry control over the Alberta energy regulators. So it should be a really interesting evening. More information on all of that on the Climate Action page. Hope to see you at the Hill.
Good morning. I'm Phil Nagy from the Renewal Task Force. First, a climate note. A year ago, when the weather turned like this, Reverend Eric kept his tie on. And now you can see it's off. But I'm here to talk to you about our financial campaign, Something Old, Something New. I've been away for a couple of weeks, but in the days before I left, I did 2 things. One was to send a letter by Canada Post to everyone on our mailing list who had not already contributed, asking you to donate to Something Old, Something New. The second was to write an article, a progress report, for the June edition of our quarterly, The Spire, which you will get this week. To write the article, I had to guess at the results of my letter, and I was wildly optimistic. The letter did not bring out the donations we'd hoped for, and Something Old, Something New is stuck at about $26,000. Our goal was $70,000. The task force and the property committee have had to reconfigure the fundraising campaign. Something Old, the replacement of the patio railings, has to be postponed. This cuts the goal of the campaign in half to $35,000. Something New, an electronic and Wi-Fi upgrade, needs to go ahead. It is something we cannot afford not to do. The property committee is hard at work getting quotes and trying to find savings wherever possible. We are still short about $9,000, but we're in the home stretch. If you haven't already done so, I urge you to donate. Click on the red button in the EUU or on the website for detailed instructions. It is tax deductible. But it's not all bad news. This Friday, June 2nd, at 8 p.m. is our special silent movie night, The Red Balloon, with music by interim music director Kirk Atzett and special guest soloist Pauline van der Roost. This will be a fun evening as well as a fundraiser, and you can bring your checkbook. Finally, we need some people to help on Friday night. We need someone at the back to help take donations, and we need a couple of people in Fellowship Hall to help with the refreshments in the reception after the event. So if you're able to help, please contact me. You can find me in Fellowship Hall, or you can email me at renewal@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our webpage, our website, for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though as global health challenges continue, many of our activities remain online. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community. Welcome.
To begin our morning's reflection on uncertainty and faith, we light our chalice this morning to these words of welcome adapted from those by Norman V. Naylor. Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave there your pain, your sorrow, or your joys. Bring them with you into this place of acceptance and forgiveness. Place them on the common altar of life. Come and offer yourself to potential transformation by the creative process that flows through you and all life. Our chalice is lit. Come, let us worship together. And each week when we're gathered, we pause in our time together in recognition of both the joys and the sorrows in our hearts and our lives and the lives of loved ones and the larger life of the world at large. We honor these celebrations and challenges by placing stones in a bowl of water. If you look closely, if you're close enough, you can see the water, the ripples that the stone causes, and you can imagine them, ripples extending out into and beyond the pews, out into the world at large. A stone, a large one, for everyone who made the Canadian Unitarian Council's symposium here and at Algonquin College last weekend such a success. Those sleepless youth weren't the only sleepless ones, I think. And a stone of celebration this morning as well for Ruth, mother-in-law of our former minister, the late Reverend John Marsh, who is celebrating her 100th birthday today. Let's wish her a happy birthday, hearty enough for her to hear in her home in Edmonton. Happy birthday, Ruth. And a stone of sorrow and sympathy now for Anne's stepfather, Ron, who died early this month at 100 years and 9 months old. Ron was inordinately proud, or appropriately proud, of his 22 grandchildren and kept his sense of humor until the end. The stone also in recognition of former member Sam, who is undergoing serious medical treatment next month. And a stone also for Lisa, Eric, and their family on the loss of their newborn grandson, Matthew. And as always, final stone this morning for all the joys and sorrows that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Carrying cards for Ruth, Sam, Ron, and Matthew's extended family are at the back of the hall at the caring table for us to sign. Even if you don't know any of them, please take a moment, sign a card to extend our congregation's care on behalf of those who have given this community such love, care, and vitality. Let us gather now in a few moments of silent meditation before Kirk brings us together once more.
The reading is a meditation on breathing by Rebecca C. Beckett-Coppola. Let go of the idea that you know what breathing should feel like. Just notice the breath as it moves in and out of the body. Let go of certainty. Be with the breath as it is. Allow openness. Allow curiosity. Notice the mind, each thought that arises. Allow openness. Don't judge your mind or your experience. Be loving in your curiosity about each thought. Let go of certainty. Let go of any idea about what you should be thinking, accepting your thoughts exactly as they are. Be with yourself as you are. Be curious about who you are. Love how you are in the world. Gently take a deep breath, maybe even a big sigh. Re-enter the personal moment and the stream of your life.
Beautiful music, thank you. You'll have to forgive me if my voice becomes a bit hoarse. Tara and I were out early this morning cheering on the runners, which was a choice given that I was doing this, but it's okay. And thanks for the invitation to speak with you this morning, to Bob, to Reverend Eric, to others. We are kicking off, I didn't appreciate it until today, the summer series with the decidedly light topic of mental illness. So it's already written, here we are. Okay. So good morning. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Justine De Jaegher. So it's early March this year when Reverend Eric is preaching about the value of leading with vulnerability. He's drawing inspiration from the Brené Brown reading we'd heard earlier in the service. I'm both enraptured by the sermon and shift a little uncomfortably in my pew. On reflection, I agreed. Some of the strongest connections and resulting empathy are the result of the courageous step of being vulnerable with our fellow human beings. But my refrains of, well, oh, I've been busy, or, oh, I'm fine, to the earnest question of, how are you? We haven't seen you in a while, posed by fellow congregants that very morning and weeks past, echoed in my head. The truth was, I was fine then and feel pretty fine now, but there was a period during the pandemic when I struggled a great deal. My wife Tara and I began attending FirstU in the summer of 2018, officially becoming members the following year. We'd been looking for a welcoming, thoughtful, social justice-oriented community of faith, and after the first service, knew we'd come to the right place. I quickly engaged in a number of committees and initiatives, including serving as treasurer on the congregation's board of directors for a year. Towards the end of that year, I accepted a promotion at work and decided I needed to limit some of my volunteer commitments to accommodate the additional responsibility and stress. Then the pandemic hit. And while I continued to engage with FirstU online, and this engagement eventually waned until recently when I began returning to in-person services. All of that was true. All of that is true. But it's not the whole story of these last 3 years, and certainly not the most vulnerable one. The more vulnerable story includes the fact that over these years, I have struggled intensely with the mental illness I had been diagnosed with over a decade earlier, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, or OCD. Now, you would be forgiven if you thought OCD to be a mere personality quirk centered around cleanliness and order. That's certainly how it's frequently, and I would say problematically, portrayed. But in reality, OCD is a serious mental illness that impacts roughly 1 in 100 adults and is correlated with substantially higher rates of depression and suicide when untreated. It is characterized by a cycle of intrusive, unwanted thoughts, or obsessions, and associated actions, compulsions, to attempt to reduce the associated anxiety. The problem is that the compulsions only serve to fuel the anxiety in the long run, resulting in an ever-worsening cycle for the sufferer. Ultimately, OCD is a disorder centered on the unwillingness to accept and live with uncertainty. Now, when OCD first presented in my early 20s, it involved obsessions around locks, security, hit and runs, and fires. Essentially whether I could have possibly caused unintentional harm to others. When I hit that bump driving home, is it possible that was a person? Better drive back in the middle of the night and check. Better drive back and check again in case my headlights weren't on bright enough and I couldn't actually see whether there was a body in the road. Better check again and again. Is it possible I left the door to my house unlocked, allowing an intruder to enter and murder my family? Better rush home and check every single inch of the house to ensure that no one was hiding in the shadows. Better also check all the windows lest the intruder came in, unlocked one for some later entry, and ran off into the night. The constant anxiety and attempts to quell it became borderline debilitating. It impacted everything from my relationships with friends and family to my ability to engage meaningfully in work and school, and at one point, even my desire to live. Fortunately, while OCD is a highly misunderstood disorder, it's also highly treatable. I eventually found a therapist specializing in the treatment of OCD, using what's often cited as the gold standard treatment of exposure and response prevention, or ERP. The disorder is chronic, and I continue to live with it, But after mere months of appropriate therapy and medication, I was able to get by. Rather than trying to push away my obsessive thoughts, I learned to live with the uncertainty, even in incredibly difficult areas of my life. Now, cut to several years later, and my OCD has reemerged and has latched onto a new subtype, generally referred to as religious scrupulosity. The OCD cycle is the same, but the thoughts are focused on religious themes, such as the afterlife and salvation, and the compulsions can include things like saying prayers repeatedly in an effort to get them, quote, just right, to excessive research of passages from religious texts, to endless rumination about what constitutes sin. Now, for those of you thinking, we are UUs, that sounds like something that might afflict someone from a more conservative Catholic or Southern evangelical tradition, but surely not an observer of a faith as focused on love, acceptance, and universal salvation as Unitarian Universalism. I'm afraid you'd be wrong. Because ultimately, scrupulosity, OCD, isn't about religion. It's about attacking something the sufferer values, an area in which they feel they cannot accept uncertainty. In fact, research shows that OCD manifests roughly equally across all faith traditions, including agnosticism and atheism. Again, because scrupulosity is not about belief, it's about doubt. Someone cannot believe in a higher power, but they cannot be 100% certain that that's true. It's this difficulty with certainty that is the neurological underpinnings of the disorder. Now, when these new types of obsessions began to plague me, I initially couldn't bring myself to embrace uncertainty in the way I had before. I decided that this time was different and that the stakes were simply too high. However, through rigorous therapy with a brilliant psychologist, I once again ultimately learned that I could learn to live with uncertainty associated with religious themes too. Even the afterlife and whether a vengeful God might condemn myself and my family. The alternative was to not live life according to the values or the God that I actually believed in, but rather a feigned faith dictated by a mental disorder. While it requires ongoing maintenance, including attending a regular support group, I have never felt more free from my OCD. So that's the story. Why share it? Why share all this with you here today? Well, to quote what's either called the parable of the hole or the parable of the pit, depending on who you're asked, and perhaps most popularly portrayed in the program The West Wing by Leo McGarry, the story goes like this. There's a guy walking down a street when he falls in a hole. The walls are so steep that he can't get out. A doctor passes by, shouts up, "Hey doc, I'm stuck in this hole, can you help me out?" The doctor writes a prescription, throws it down in the hole, and keeps walking. Then a priest comes along, and the guy says, "Hey, father, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you help me out?" The priest writes down a prayer, throws it in the hole, and keeps walking. Then a friend walks by. "Hey, Joe, it's me. Can you help me out?" And the friend jumps in the hole. Now our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both in here." The friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before, and I know the way out." Now, it turns out that I benefited from both the healthy prayer and the prescription in treating my OCD, but hearing from others with the disorder and our shared experience was one of the biggest motivators in keeping me going in treatment. So maybe leading with vulnerability is just another way of saying, I'm jumping in the hole. If someone else is down here, know that there's hope. Now, on the other side of this relapse with my OCD, I've become engaged with organizations like the International OCD Foundation, which provides incredible resources. I've in fact had the pleasure of speaking at 2 of their virtual faith and OCD conferences over the past 2 years, and their in-person conference last year in Denver. I sit on their LGBTQ and faith and OCD special interest groups. And a couple of months ago, I was reaching out to both mental health and religious organizations in Canada trying to raise awareness about our upcoming conference on faith and OCD. It was in that moment that I realized that I had yet to disclose the significant part of my life to my home congregation. So as part of a community of faith with strong social justice leanings, and even with a mental health action group, I wanted to share my story. We are a large and diverse congregation with, I'm sure, many stories of mental illness and periodic mental distress. I want to say that you are not alone. For anyone with OCD specifically, or with loved ones with OCD, I encourage you to check out things like the IOCDF. As we are a community of faith, and of course religious scrupulosity is only one of the many ways that OCD can present, I did want to draw particular attention to the newly developed Faith and OCD Resource Center, a wonderful project led by the Reverend Katie O'Dunn out of Georgia. Finally, I'm sharing my story because I believe there are lessons to be learned about living with uncertainty that are universally beneficial, whether you live with OCD or not. In church and in spaces dealing with religious or spiritual thought, we inherently deal in the uncertain. I think about my recent experience as a mentor in the Coming of Age program. So many of those questions are about the uncertain. What happens to us after we die? How do we define morality? These big questions are important and often the bedrock of a strong investigation into one's beliefs and faith. The problem is when it becomes disordered, when our search for meaning and perhaps a belief in a higher power is born not out of a motivation to lead a more values-driven life, but an unquenchable thirst for that which we cannot have, absolute certainty. And we all struggle with uncertainty. You may have left a conversation thinking, oh, did I say something that offended her? Or, oh, could this rash be cancer? Or, do you think they thought I was stupid when I said that? Or, oh, did I wash my hands long enough before holding that baby? At the end of the day, we can't actually know these things for sure in that moment. What we can do is ask ourselves the question, what is demanding my attention and what is deserving of my attention? Sometimes those things will be the same, and sometimes they'll be different. A child screaming for help while swimming is both demanding my attention and, I would say, deserving of my attention. Endless rumination about something for which there is no definitive answer that's taking me away from my values, be that time with family or genuine faith practice, that may be my anxiety demanding my attention, and I can decide that it is no longer deserving. Accepting uncertainty around something doesn't mean that we want it, doesn't mean that it's likely, but it means that we are accepting reality versus a fantasy. As Voltaire said, uncertainty is an uncomfortable position, but certainty is an absurd one. As a congregation dedicated to social justice and progressive change, it also doesn't mean we can't do things to contribute positively to the world around us. It just means we learn the wisdom to accept what we cannot change and perhaps what we cannot know. A concept which likely resonates with many of my fellow UUs who largely reject religious dogma to begin with. So this work has become so meaningful to me in my recovery, from getting to share my story of hope with those who feel they have none living with this disorder, to advancing policy solutions for more affordable mental health care and quality remuneration for clinicians through public investment. At their best, communities of faith, I think, are ultimately about bringing people together and making sure no one is left behind. For those who believe in God or some higher power, seeing the worthiness and divine in all creation. And as such, faith communities like this one are actually well positioned to be a part of this work, demanding more accessible, quality mental health care for those who need it. A real-world demonstration, you might say, of the kind of compassion and care modeled by prophetic leaders from a variety of religions. I've spoken through this work to many other people of faith with OCD from various traditions, from Jewish to evangelical Protestant to Roman Catholic to Baha'i. In almost all cases, doing the hard work of ERP to disentangle themselves from OCD actually brought them closer to their faith practice. To some, we hear that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is, however, not certainty. We don't get to have that. So with that, I will leave you with a prayer by Catholic theologian Thomas Merton. You may have heard it. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. May we model this kind of solidarity and vulnerability together. It's good to be back. Thank you.
Before I continue with the service, I'd like to thank you very much, Justine, for your heartfelt reflection and for helping us to understand about OCD and other mental disorders that we perhaps don't understand and perhaps have parts of ourselves. And may I add that I believe every week in the EUU, the Mental Health Action Group is advertised as meeting. I'm sorry, I don't know what the time is, but I do know that Johnny Gall is in charge of it, and Linda Gunwardine is a resource there. And this is a great place to go if you want to talk or to listen or to find out or just to feel more comfortable. And now I'd ask the ushers to start. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. To make a gift in support of the work of this congregation, you don't need to use the baskets that are now beginning to make their way among our pews. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And now let us sing together once more. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing How Could Anyone, a beautiful, beautiful song which you'll find is number 1053 in your teal hymnal.
How
Be seated. Before we begin now to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our coffee hour will resume in Fellowship Hall immediately after this service. Please note, however, that there will not be an informal online fellowship hour today, but leafy greens are still available courtesy of the good folks of Ajaski for those who would like some from the Grow Towers in the old volunteer room near Fellowship Hall. I also want to remind you about a couple of things that will take place next Sunday. Brent mentioned the church picnic and barbecue. I also want to notice that, make you aware that next Sunday, June 4th, will be the 100th anniversary from June 4th, 1923, of Norbert Chopek's flower ceremony. Please bring a flower or two to share. We will each depart with a different flower than the one or ones we brought with us. Now, as we prepare to extinguish our chalice, may these words from my colleague Scott Tyler be our guide. May the call of creativity arise again from within. May your own creative unfolding leave you in awe. May the beauty that has blessed you lead you to create beauty for those you love and for those you do not yet know. May the creativity that arises between us help to birth the world anew. Kirk, singers, will you bless us once again? In reaching out our hands to those near and those beyond our reach. We are people of both reason and heart, of both memory and hope. May we also always remain people of love, providing a place in this world for our spirit, a place perhaps best called home. As we return to the challenge of helping the world come alive in love, let us go forward in peace, my friends. Go in peace.